Section 5.1, Ratios and Ratio Tables. So writing and interpreting ratios. Remember back maybe last year when you would be given a picture of, let's say, 4 deer and 5 bears, and they would ask you to compare the number of deer to bears. And so you would have to count, and you would find that there were 4 deer and 5 bears, and you would write it like this: 4 to 5, right? 4, and then a colon, and 5. And you say it 4 to 5. That's a ratio. A ratio is a comparison of 2 quantities. So comparing the number of deer to the number of bears. Now, the value of a ratio is when you place it in a fraction form, and you put the first number on top and the second number on bottom, and that will tell you the value of the ratio. So the value of the example with the deer to bears would be 4 over 5. Okay, but let's look at this example. A recipe uses 3.5 cups. A recipe uses 3/2 cups of water per 2 cups of glue. So we want to write this as a ratio of water to glue. So here's our water and here's our glue. So it's 3/2 water to 2 cups of glue, and that's our ratio. But now we want to find the value of this ratio. And remember, I said you put the first number on top, 3/2, and the second number on the bottom, 2. Okay, this is the same as saying 3/2 divided by 2, which, thinking back to previous chapters, we know we do a keep, change, flip. We multiply it out and we end up with 3/4. So the value of our ratio is 3/4. And this means that the amount of water in the recipe is 3/4 the amount of glue. Okay, so let's do another example. We're going to have 12 dogs and 15 cats at a pet store. And we want to know the ratio of cats to dogs. Okay, so they say cats to dogs, but up in our sentence above, they listed dogs first. So make sure you pick the cat value. So ratio of cats, 15 cats to 12 dogs. And that's the ratio. But we want to find now the value of this ratio. And remember, I said put the first number on top, second number on bottom, right? Looks like a fraction. And we can simplify this fraction. Both the top and the bottom can be divided by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So the value of this ratio is 5/4, meaning the number of cats is 5/4 the number of dogs. All right, time to write in your notes. There is one section at top that has 3 fill in the blanks. All right, moving along. Now we are going to complete a ratio table. This is a good way for us to view equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios are 2 ratios that describe the same relationship, right? So 2/4, 2 to 4 is equivalent to 4 to 8, all right? The value of the first one is 1/2. The value of the second one is also 1/2, right? You can simplify both the top and bottom by dividing by 4, and you can simplify this one, the top and bottom, by dividing by 2. Okay, so you can find equivalent ratios. Remember, equivalent ratios are 2 ratios that describe the same relationship. You can find them by adding or subtracting quantities, or by multiplying or dividing each quantity in the ratio by the same number. Okay, it's a lot of talking and might be a little confusing. So let's do an example, okay? A ratio table will help us find these equivalent ratios. Okay, so let's say we're making purple frosting, and we have to add red dye and blue dye to it. Okay, because we know red and blue together make purple. So the recipe calls for 3 drops of red and 2 drops of blue. Okay, but we want to find an equivalent ratio. So we look at this one, and they gave us 12. So we have to think, how are 3 and 12 related? Well, you can multiply 3 by 4 to get 12. Okay, so if you multiply 3 times 4 to get 12, you must multiply 2 times 4 to get this number here, which is 8. See, we're multiplying both the top and the bottom by the same number. 12 and 8 is our equivalent ratio to 3 to 2. Now let's look here. We want to look at 8 and 4, and how are they related? Well, 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So 12 divided by 2 should give us the value here, which is 6. All right. So a key thing to look at is that you can use the ratio table to check your answers, right? So our ratio table would look like this. 3 halves, this is an 8 and this is a 6, right? 3 halves, looks like a fraction. 12 eighths and 6 fourths. What if we simplify these? 12 divided by 4 gives me 3. 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. And 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. Right? So look, they all end up, when you simplify these equivalent ratios, when you simplify them, they all equal the same thing. No wonder we've been working so much on simplifying fractions, huh? Okay. Let's try an example here. Okay, so I have cups to quarts. All right, and remember, we can find equivalent ratios by adding or subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Okay, so let's look at what we're given. We're given a 3 and 3/4. So let's look at 3 and 12. How are they related? You can probably multiply it by 4 to give you 12, right? So 3/4 times 4 gives you what? 3. All right. Now let's look at how we got this next number, 15. 12 and 15 can't really multiply or divide. So maybe if we add the 3 plus the 12, we get 15. 3 plus 12 is 15. Yep. So what about here then? So we'd have to add 3/4 and 3, which gives us 3 and 3/4. Now remember, 3 and 3/4 is the same thing as 15/4. So in theory, I could have put that in there as well, which might have been a better idea. Let's do this over. There we go. All right, a little cleaner. So now, how do we get from 15/4 to 5/4? What if we divide it by 3? 15/4 divided by 3, same as 15/4 times 1/3, right? These can simplify, so we end up with 5/4, which matches this. So it looks like if we take the number in the third column and we divide by 3, we should get the number in the fourth column. So 15 divided by 3 equals 5. Okay? So just remember, if you're multiplying this top number by 4, you need to do the same thing to the bottom one. If you're adding the 2 in the first 2 columns, you need to add the first 2 columns down below as well. And then if you divide the top by 3, you also need to divide the bottom by 3. All right, and those will all create equivalent ratios. And we can check, let's see, our value of the ratio is 3 divided by 3/4, right? 3 divided by 3/4, which is the same as 3 times 4 over 3, which is the same as 4. So all our ratios here should have a ratio value of 4, meaning if you put cups on top and you divide it by quarts and simplify, it should equal 4. All right, again, time to write in your notes. You will complete the bottom section. So a couple fill in the blanks and complete a ratio table and calculate the value of the ratio. All right, and now time to do some practice problems. Okay, so we have 2 practice problems, and the first one asks you to complete the table by writing the corresponding ratio, right? So this example that they gave us was 12 kittens to 14 puppies, 12 to 14. So the second one would be 5 to 11. And I think you can probably get the second 2 or the last 2 fairly easily. Not much help needed on that one. Okay, but practice problem number 2. We are going to complete the ratio table of bikes to mopeds. Okay, and then find the value of the ratio. So first, let's fill in this table. And we look at 4 and 8. And how can we turn 4 into 8? Multiply by 2. So we need to multiply 3 by 2 to get this number here, which is 6. Now you want to look at 6 and 9. But that might be a little tricky to figure out. So let's go back to this first one. 3 and 9. How do we get 3 to turn into 9? Multiply it by 3. Okay, so we can use the first column to find the last column. 3 times 3 gives us 9. So 4 times 3 gives us this value here. Okay, now if we want to find the value of the ratio, what do? We put the first number on top, second number on bottom, right? So the value of our ratio is 3/4. We can't simplify that anymore. But let's look to see if this one is also an equivalent ratio. It should have the same value, 6 to 8. Now both of them can be divided by 2. So that would equal 3 to 4. So that one as well is an equivalent ratio. It has the same value, right? And this, whatever number you put here, if you did 9 over the box and you simplified it down, it should also equal 3/4. All right? So complete the table, and I guess I gave you the value of the ratio, didn't I? All right, that concludes 5.1.